Okay, it's all yours.
All right, so we are Team All Your Race, and we're responsible for creating the masterpiece known as All Your Race Are Belong to Us. At least it's a masterpiece to you now, since you haven't seen it yet. We're going to explain a little bit about our process and what we went through developing this. So, All Your Race, if you do not remember, it's a 3D racing game, and you have a choice of 3 characters, or at least you will in the final build, not the one we presented to you today. You have AI-controlled opponents, multiplayer was a consideration at one point, but who's got the time for that? And the tagline for the game, as I envision it, would be, prove your worth as the fastest meme alive, for glory, for country, for the walls. Now, who is Team All Your Race? Well, I'll have them introduce themselves to you.
I'm Josh Ritchie. I'm in charge of global design and craft control.
I'm Vin. I did most of the character design.
I'm Jonathan. I'm in charge of reading the snacks.
I'm Richard. I did the AI programming and pathfinding.
And I'm Keegan Musser. I'm responsible for game programming and GUI design. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the development process. We almost immediately decided upon Unity 3D. It works very well with 3D, which we might be the first 3D game that's presented, and we found it works very well. It's got a lot of good APIs for 3D. As well, it has very convenient hierarchy, project hierarchy, that allows you to view all scripts and data assets. We're able to attribute them very easily. Also considering the fact that several of our members have previous experience in Unity and 3ds Max, which we used to create assets and combine them. This was able to facilitate quick development, add to the fact that we were working off of a pre-established product, thanks to Josh. We also, since our experience differed in a lot of cases, we were able to modularize tasks. This made dealing with version control pretty easy, as we weren't really modifying the same scripts and assets all the time. We were able to commit each of our individual changes and avoid problems. We used SVN and Dropbox to deal with the actual game build and the assets like images and character models, respectively. This allowed us to get our product across the internet as quickly and without as much conflict as necessary.
So I did the AIM process, and our algorithm uses A-star pathfinding, the library that you saw in one of the previous games groups. It's the same grid layout where you create a grid on the screen and it does some ray casting down to discover walkable nodes. And then we set up basically checkpoints along the track for the player and the AI, in which you give it a certain amount of nodes that calculates a point from a path from point A to point B, and then all the way around the track. So that way the AI cars know which way to go. We decided to mix the speed with depending on how well it's keeping track of the path and based on how fast it's going. So obviously if it's going significantly faster, it's going to try to attain the next waypoint at a lot farther of a distance, so it doesn't just miss that waypoint and then turn around and go back because it doesn't know any better. Also, I implemented obstacle avoidance with raycasting in the sense that it'll raycast pretty much every frame. If it starts getting too close to walls, it'll mark that point as sort of a collision, and then it'll create an updatable graph object and create a penalty in that area such that the next time around it recalculates the path, it'll try to specifically avoid that area so it doesn't crash into walls. So as I mentioned, updatable graph object, so in addition of raycasting, if it, for example, gets stuck on a wall or does something weird, it'll also mark that terrain, that waypoint as a penalty area, and it'll just mark that off and decide that that's not a very good place to go. So this is just an example of one of our levels called Boxdome City, in which you can see the grid layout section. So this is the road right here, and as you can see, some top of the buildings, because the raycasting is set very high. You can see all these green areas and the blue and purple, they're different colors, just to help you visualize. They're all traversable terrain. And this side right here, you can see the wall of the track is marked as an obstacle layer. So it specifically doesn't create grid nodes right here because it doesn't want to get too close to the wall. And then you can see the debug build, the AI hovercraft right here, and they're just kind of pointing at the point that it's trying to attain. So it'll just has a path through all these nodes, and it just constantly tries to approach these paths as it goes along the track.
So, like most projects, ours was not without a few challenges, mostly logistics. One problem we had was that our scenes were just binary blobs, and we couldn't necessarily have multiple people working on it at the same time. because of our division of labor, we actually were able to handle that pretty easily by having only like select person changing the scene at a given time. And as far as like metadata associated with Unity, we just simply changed a few project settings. Richard realized early on that we could make a few adjustments, and that way, whenever we made any commits to the SVN, we weren't uploading a massive amount of data. We have had a bit of a late start to our development cycle, but the end results shows that we were able to make up for that time. We had a bit of schedule incompatibility, and our avenues of communication didn't always meet in the same mediums. So some people might have preferred Facebook, but we found in the end that simply keeping a chain of emails was the most consistent way of making sure that everyone was up to date. Additionally, one last technical problem was that sometimes we had our AI and earlier builds had speed and trajectory problems. So for example, they would try to go for a particular waypoint, and then they would miss it, and they would try to come around into pass through a waypoint again. Richard talked about well enough about how we handle those problems.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about some things that we have to finish and finalize before the final code. So far we have 2 working tracks. The first one you saw earlier was Blackstone City. And the second thing that I'm making is Sky City. So Blackstone City is mostly finished. The AI collision points, most of that's already implemented. And that is like a metropolitan-like atmosphere. But Cat City is going to be a more cartoonish, like if you've heard of Wolfcats, there's gonna be plenty of memes in the level. So as you're just driving around, you're gonna see like all these references. And then the character models. So far we have 3 character models. Them being 9 tact, the rage faces like Foreverlone, Troll Face, and Pedal Bear. And each of them drive their own vehicle. Right now we have 9 cabins like that. The rage faces will drive a convertible-like vehicle, and Pedal Bear will drive a van. And we only did that because we cut a hole in the passenger seat, and so we have them like sticking out from over the hood, and just like being all creepy. So, yeah, that's scary. And then the kinetic track features, that involves, more or less the getting the AI down and the function stuff. Safety of functionality, that's like, let's say that you finish lap 1 in 1 minute. We want to save that information so that when you're doing lap 2, you can see, oh, I beat lap 1 in 1 minute. I want to get a better time on that lap. So something like that. And then,
I'm going to show you a demo of the game and as it currently stands. This is our build as of last night.
Countdown implemented for the start of the race, and once that goes off, we keep track of what place the player is in on the bottom left. And the AI is kind of retarded right now, we're still working on that. And second round will catch up. But as you can see, they will recover after they've respawned on the track, and they'll play pretty competitively when they're not crashing. See on the top left, we keep track of how close behind you the enemies are, and every time you go through a checkpoint, we'll update that. So if you crash, you'll respawn pretty close to where you crashed at. So hoping the AI will be smart enough to catch up with me. And right now we have it set so it's only 1 lap and then the race is over. So get into that demo. So, any questions?
How difficult was the 3D versus doing it as a 2D? I mean, did that really add a huge layer of complexity for you or not, do you think?
I always envisioned as 3D, so we really there was never any momentous problem since we already conceived it as 3D.
I just say it was definitely a lot difficult when I was doing AI programming though, just because, you know, controlling AI cars is a lot different than human. You know, you have to deal with a lot of 3D vectors, trying to keep track of velocity vectors and direction vectors. Started to bring me back to Calc 3 days, and it started to get really difficult, but I think in the long run, using some of the built-in functions in Unity, it became a little easier over time. But obviously, you can tell it still relies a lot of tweaking to cause the AI to be a little better, but I think with the way we're going, it's going to be more so that we have to tune down the AI for how fast it's going to be going, more so than trying to get it to be as good as the player. So.
So I guess, like besides the AI and everything, how is that really different from what we saw when y'all did the concept presentation?
The original AI was just using path points that we had to manually place in ourselves at various points along the track, and you would have to actually specify what the next path point in the sequence was. And the current system, we actually generated a whole set of points, and the AI can calculate what the fastest set of points is. So there's like a whole network of areas it can go, and it just calculates the fastest one to the checkpoint.
It's sort of more game mode now. The demo at the start of the class was kind of, here's a car, you can drive it places. Now we kind of have the GUI system, keeps track of laps, keeps track of an actual race. Obviously the final build, it'll give you a little bit more than just the okay, you'll have more laps, and it'll be like, hey, you won, or hey, you lost, kind of thing. So it's more of a game than it is a sandbox free race type thing.
We have the cat level in place actually. You'll see how coherent the whole style is. Joshua spent a lot of time working on that, and it's actually a really awesome looking level. We look forward to actually seeing that in the game.
Any others?